Welcome to the Big Mike Fund Podcast, where you learn about advanced wealth building strategies from real estate investing to creating massive ROI and secured retirement profits. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, grab a notepad, and lean in. Because Big Mike has got the mic, starting now.
Welcome to the Big Mike Fund Podcast. I'm Big Mike Zlatnik. Today my guest is Antoine Martel. Hi, Antoine. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you, again, coming on the podcast. And you are a rising star entrepreneur. We've had all kinds of interesting guests, and you are probably one of the youngest guests. But you've been very successful, and you've had a very impressive beginning of your career. You're young, but age has no limitations. So tell us a little bit about you. You live in Los Angeles, and you've been investing in real estate in 4 years, and you went from zero to 40 flips a year now. And you have a whole business of buying and selling turnkey properties. So tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm 23 years old. I live in Los Angeles. I was born in Toronto, Canada. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, but then moved to Los Angeles a couple of years ago. Got started real estate investing about 4 years ago. Me, my dad, and my brother went to like a flip this house kind of course 4 years ago. We learned about how to underwrite deals, how to make offers, all those kinds of things. And we started making offers on properties that we wanted to flip in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, and quickly we realized after making 20 offers a month for 6 months that we didn't have enough money and there was way too much competition. So we started going to networking events, started networking with people who were local to us, and networking event after networking event, it was a very similar topic came up, which was out-of-state investing. And that was not really on our radar when we first started. That wasn't part of the course that we took. So it was very new to us, and that's kind of when I started steering into learning more about out-of-state investing, learning about rental properties. And from there, my last year at university, we bought our first property out of state. The plan was to buy that property, rehab it, rent it out, and then do a cash out refinance, which if you look online is called the BRRRR strategy. That's what I started doing right out of college, just trying to help my parents grow a rental property portfolio so they could retire. And with that and learning how to grow my parents' rental property portfolio, that's what I started doing for other people. And now I have what is called a turnkey business, where I buy properties, rehab them, rent them out, put a property management company in place, and then I resell them to families who are looking to grow their own personal rental property portfolio.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation and the introduction. Yeah, I've had some interesting guests just like you who do very significant business in the turnkey space.
Yeah.
So I'm very familiar with the space. I own some rentals like this out of town too. It is a very popular thing nowadays to buy properties. Typically coastal investors buy them in the middle of the country. So which markets do you invest in?
Sure. So we're doing Memphis and Cleveland mostly. We do 5 to 10 deals a month per market there. Then there's other markets that we're doing: Akron, Ohio, and Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, I know both markets. I have some good friends in Birmingham and Cleveland too. But a quick question: so you actually buy them? You're not reselling somebody else's properties. You're buying them, fixing them.
No. And yeah, and that's what's different between me and a lot of the competitors out there. There's a lot of people who will sell. 50% of the properties that they sell are theirs. The other 50%, they're just brokering deals. So if you go to my website and look at our properties, it's all properties that I own with my own money. And yeah, I don't broker any deals. Every contract you sign with me is going to be, my name on that contract.
Got you. That's certainly a unique angle. I've seen the opposite, where folks sell somebody else's inventory, but you're selling your own. Which is, we actually work with a number of folks who do this. But they're very specific. They're local. So as a part of our business, as a part of what we do in the kind of financing space, we work with the turnkey sort of folks like you. They buy, we finance some of these deals, and they sell them just like you. So I'm familiar with the angle. It's a very solid angle. What's most amazing is this: the folks I know, they live there. So they live in Quad Cities. They're not in Los Angeles. You're doing this a few thousand miles away. How are you able to do this? How are you able to find good people to do quality work on your properties?
Yep. Yep. And so that's the biggest challenge with this business. If I was on the ground, I would be doing a lot more of the work and probably wouldn't have grown as fast as I did. But because I put the right people in place and spent the time, it took me 6 months to build the team. If I was there on the ground, it could take me 30 days or less for me to find people. And maybe they're not going to be good people the first time, but at least I would have a team put together. So being out of state, it's a lot more challenging. It takes a lot more time. There's a whole longer vetting process that you need to go through, because every single aspect of the business, even up to scheduling the appraiser and figuring out little tiny minute details, need to be handled by somebody else because I'm not on the ground. So it does take a long time, and there's a whole vetting process that we have now that certain aspects of a business and how a property management company is set up that we think will work well with our model. But finding good people on the ground is a lot of work up front, and then really going out to that market. And I go and shake a lot of hands and meet a lot of people in order to find the best people fit for what we're trying to do.
That makes a lot of sense. So you fly to these markets sufficiently often to spend time to build and maintain some of these local relationships, I assume.
Yeah, and especially maintaining too is something people forget about. It's not just building the relationship, but keeping it going.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you could set it up; it can fall apart a couple of months later. Another quick question: how are you finding the deal flow? The deal flow. I know a lot of heavy movers and shakers who find all kinds of deals. I go to a mastermind called the Collective Genius. It's one of the most prominent.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I'm one of the veterans. And a lot of heavy hitters and then mastermind. They've done a lot of and everybody's struggling today with inventory. Quality inventory seems to be hard to find. How are you finding deals today?
So deals today, a lot of my deals come from wholesalers right now. If you asked me earlier in the year, I would have said MLS. MLS, as the year progressed and as interest rates kind of went up, the deals kind of started to dry up. I don't know why, but
I can tell you.
It's mostly.
I can easily tell you why. It's the substitution effect. As the rates have gone up, the expensive properties became less affordable, and everybody shifted down. So you're working in a very affordable range, turnkey range. Demand for the turnkeys have increased because it's the most affordable part of the market from the owner-occupied perspective and from the investor perspective. It's the only thing that's affordable.
Sense. Yep. Okay. There we go. Question answered. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of MLS when we first started, 80% MLS. The other stuff just deals from people who knew us, or, from agents or referrals or whatever. And then we started moving our business. I started networking with more wholesalers, and now I have a bunch of wholesalers working for me. And so 80% of my deals are now coming from wholesalers. And it's something that's always changing too, because, we did 50 deals this year actually. And I just looked at our numbers yesterday. We did 50 deals this year, and next year our goal is to do 100. So, it's something that we're thinking about too. How can we double the amount of deals that we're doing? And how can we finance all of those deals as well? So,
yeah, it's a great goal. It's certainly going to be challenging, the wholesalers, good source, but you have to realize they work for maximum profits. So as inventories dry up, and you're going to have competition, so your margin's going to get tight. So are you still able to make a reasonable spread on your properties? And deliver quality product to your buyers? It's very important because they're mutually exclusive.
Absolutely.
Typically, people who are trying to make a good profit are not able to deliver a good product because they got to squeeze the spread. So are you able to get decent
makes sense.
spread and quality product delivered?
Yeah, so since the beginning of the year, we've actually kept the same spread. There was a couple of deals that I took just to get more deal flow, and I took a little bit hit on the spread. But I never would reduce my rehab budget to take that spread. I would rather make less money as on the turnkey business side and do a deal and, give a great client a great property. Because that client, if they buy one, 80% of my business is repeat customers. So I treat all of my customers as if I was going to buy that house, and I want the same rehab quality as if I was going to hold it. And that's the kind of quality that I do. So, I'd rather make, 40% less on the deal, but make sure that person gets a house that I would be comfortable buying, rather than, cutting corners on the rehab. Cutting corners on the rehab can only last so long. And, that's going to come back and affect the buyer in the future. And, they're not going to want to buy with me again because we cut corners. So.
Yeah, certainly great attitude and great approach to business. Long-term relationships are far more valuable than making a buck every day.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So agreed. What do you typically do on these houses? Just curious. Do you buy them pretty heavily run down and you do a lot of work? Do you change roofs? Do you do electric plumbing? Do you do what's a typical acquisition price? What's a typical rehab budget? And what's the typical sale price?
Sure. So typical deals in Memphis, Tennessee, for example, will buy a house for $40,000, $20,000 into it, and then sell it for $70,000. So those are our typical numbers. Of course, sometimes you buy properties that are $20,000 in purchase and $40,000 or $30,000 in rehab. We kind of do the whole spectrum of things, but we want to make sure that the property's clean, safe, and livable for the tenants. We want to make sure that there's no, nothing wrong with the major systems as of this point, and there won't be any major system issues within the next year or two. So we make sure all the systems are in good working order and they're not going to explode in, a year or something. If so, then we go and replace those things. So that's the typical things that we do.
It's pretty tight.
If the property does need a new roof,
right? You're only at 16, you're selling for 70.
Yeah, no, it's very tight. Yeah.
Well, it's look, if you could turn them in the volume, that's great, but you're operating on a very thin spread. I was going to say most guys try to make 15,000 in this business. If you're making 10, you're certainly competitive. But it is tight.
Yep. If you're making 15, it's very hard to find deals. I mean, that's the thing too. I'm a smaller turnkey operator and I have people on the ground. So people make commissions on my deals and they're paid through the deal. So, I don't have anybody on payroll or anything like that. It's just me. So I'm able to take less of a margin to do more volume.
Understood. So the next question, just a little bit about management. Management of these properties can be pretty tough. I've seen good success stories and then they fall apart because of the management. And I've had my sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly experiences with management companies. They do well for a while and then they start, skimming, extra repairs. It could very well be the properties require more work, but finding reliable managers is not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. And we do our best to vet these companies up front, but of course we're vetting them on how they're performing today. It's very hard to say how these companies will perform in the future. But again, it's more, like you said, it's more about the people and what their beliefs are and what their morals are compared to how much money they're making or how much money you're paying them.
What's the typical?
So whenever
10%, 8%?
10%. 10% is what we pay across the board in all of our markets. And then first month's rent is typical leasing fee.
Yeah, it is very typical. Do your tenants stay or you see a good amount of turnover? Because the whole model makes economic sense if people stay for a while. But if the moment you got to turn over, you got to spend half your annual cash flow to clean up the property and paint it and bring it in good shape. And then you lose another month deposit. Well, not deposit, but the first month of rent.
Yep.
For the lease.
Yep. So what we do to counter that is we sign tenants on 2-year leases in Memphis, Tennessee. In Cleveland, Ohio, it's 1-year leases. But the property management company in Memphis has been able to get it to 2-year leases. So that definitely helps because now, you pay. The other thing too is that I pay leasing fee and eat it for my clients. So I sell the properties to my clients with a tenant in place already. So that fee's already been paid. Property management's been paid. Now they just have to keep paying that 10% fee. So, they're covered for the next 2 years, and hopefully that tenant stays after that as well and renews their lease. Because you're right. If, the more turnover you have, the less profitable, of course, your rental property is going to be. And, we're all out there looking for a tenant who's going to stay in the house for 10 years and slowly increase the rent over time and keep the place clean. And, it's what we're all looking for. And that's why I tell a lot of my clients to scale as fast as they can, because you are going to have problems with tenants. You are going to have problems with the major systems over time. So, if you can scale, the issue with single family homes is that you're either fully occupied or you're completely vacant. So you want to get as many properties as you can to help, your portfolio be a success long-term, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's certainly, generally speaking, it's a good strategy. The bigger your portfolio, the more diversification you have, the less of a hit of an empty house you take. It's pretty obvious.
Yep.
But do you have a general rule of thumb? And because I do, and I'll tell you mine in a second. I'm just curious what you have. So from the cash flow people make, what percentage of it should they put in reserves for repair reserves, vacancy reserves, any other reserves?
I typically do, again, I recommend anywhere from 5 to 10% for each. In my numbers spreadsheet that I send to my clients, I put a nominal 5% for each. So they're holding back 10% per month. Again, everybody kind of comes to me with their own idea of what they should be holding back because they read this book or listened to this podcast. So I honestly don't get asked that question very much. I mean, I tell people, hey, there's also a reserve here. It's a nominal 5%, and people normally don't ask questions, or they, come in with, okay, I'm holding back 15% for maintenance and then 15% for vacancy. And then of course the deal is killed at that point. But I recommend anywhere from 5 to 10% is a good range for each.
Yeah, I appreciate your clarification. What's interesting is this. Yeah, if you're going to make, as part of the sales strategy, these reserves high, you'll never sell the property. The numbers will never pan out. But practically speaking, everything I've seen, and I know a number of folks who own these portfolios, it's a 30 to 50% should go in the reserve. As strange as it sounds, because stuff breaks. You're going to have significant you're going to have significant turnover. So and as I mentioned, I do know a number of people like you who sell significant turnkeys, and it would be a significant, let's just call it a turnoff if you had to put this much money in reserve. But it's we're chatting on this, as this is my opinion. Obviously, opinions differ, but I would say a third of a cash flow is a good number to throw into the reserves, just because repairs will happen. Just like you, most other folks that come in, they do turnkey properties. They want to make sure that the property will hold for a year or two, maybe 3 at most. Yeah. So if a roof has 3 years left, well, they're not going to put in a new roof. And I've seen, firsthand, we have a portfolio and 2 3 year old roofs that weren't replaced originally now need replacement. And on one roof, as you can imagine, that's a lot of cash flow to replace a roof. So, kind of interesting.
No, it is, yeah. And I mean, the way that I'm running my own personal portfolio is I kind of just look at it on a 30-year period. So, and even if I do buy a property expecting an 15% return, and that property in the first year produces me an 8% return because we did have some, tenant, we had a tenant left, or there was some maintenance issue or whatever, I'm still making an 8% return on my portfolio. And also I have a portfolio, so I'm diversified off different markets, different asset classes. So again, it all goes back to, a lot of people get into real estate, I think, and they buy their first house and something happens in the first year and they look at their return and it's, 7%, and they're judging the rest of their real estate investing career on one property and one issue that, ruined their whole idea and philosophy.
Yeah, agreed. All I'm saying is after the first property, or as they get going, my 2 cents is keep the expectations low. High expectations typically lead to disappointment, just because you're the penciled out original cash flow or cash from cash at 12% never pans out to be that. It always comes down to 6 to 8% to be realistic. And if people understand that they're buying for long term, paying down the mortgage, it's a hedge against inflation and some level of income. It's not really a massive wealth builder, at least not anytime fast. What are you finding in today's market? So I don't know if you've noticed we've hit a period of significant volatility in the stock market, and the economy appears to be already in recession, at least initial indication. Are you seeing any kind of nervousness from the buyers, or they don't care? They're still proceeding forward because these are affordable properties, and given the alternatives locally, there's no cash flow.
Yeah, exactly. Or they can leave their money in the stock market, which they know is going to go down. So a lot of people are actually getting out of stock market or moving their 401k, out of the stock market into real estate. So we're actually getting a lot of, private money lenders and people buying rental properties out of their 401k because of that reason. And while the interest rates are still at a really good price, it's like the perfect time to get out of stock market and get into real estate because the interest rates haven't gone up enough and the stock market is going to go down pretty soon, pretty quickly. So now is kind of the perfect time to switch from stocks to real estate, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're preaching to the converted, as they say it. I happen to agree with you that the stock market, there's one major difference between the two. And the key difference is one word. It's predictability. Stock market has no predictability at this point. Well, it never has predictability. It has and now it's very volatile, and we look to be in a recessionary environment. And so people do pull their money out of that asset and go into alternatives, and this is a form of an alternative asset, especially single-family turnkey property is a good asset. It's a relatively easy sell too. You could sell to the same way they buy from you with tenants, they could sell somebody else with tenants. It's a turnkey sale. From that perspective, it's not a difficult transaction. One idea for you sooner or later, once you sell enough of these, your buyers will need to be sellers, and they may come to you and say, "Hey, listen, can you sell it for me?" So,
we've thought about that. Yeah, we've thought about that. We haven't had, of course, we've been doing this for a couple of years, so we haven't had many people who want to get out and sell. I've had it like once or twice where people just need their cash out for something really bad happened and they need to sell, and we've tried to work with them, but I think they've went and sold it on the open market and they got a good price for it and was able to get out of it as well.
Yeah, it has worked because the market has been appreciating in most of these markets, but things will somewhat slow down going forward. The chances are, the next 10 years are unlikely to be like the last 10. So from that perspective,
that's for sure.
A little bit different. We kind of running a little short on time. Let me just ask you a couple more questions. So could you share with the audience your website? How would the people find you? If they're interested to buy these type of properties, how would they get a hold of you?
Sure. So you can go to my website, martelturnkey.com, MARTEL, turnkey, TURNKEY. On there, you can go and look at, we have all the properties that we have available for sale on there. You can go and download the financial models on the website as well. And then if you want to reach out to me personally, I'm on Instagram a lot, which is Martel Antoine, MARTEL ANTOINE. And then also my email's on the website as well. You can reach out there too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I actually pulled up your website, looked at it, and you have pretty straightforward listings, and it looks good. It looks simple. Having a simple website, easy to understand, is really important. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast. One more question just for the audience. Is there a good book that you can recommend? Is there sort of your favorite book? What got you going? What's helping you? Is there something you'd like to share?
Yeah, for me, you've probably had this said 100 times, but for me, Rich Dad Poor Dad was the best book that I've ever read. It's all a mentality game. I bet a lot of your viewers have already. It's kind of the first book that everybody goes to, but still, I think not enough people have read it and still don't understand the game of real estate and why we're playing in it. So that's the one that really turned me on. There's a ton of other real estate books, but they're much more specific on, multifamilies or flipping or out of state investing. So if you're interested in what I'm doing and out of state investing, there's a good book called Real Estate Investing Out of State. It's by David Green. So that's a good book that I would recommend for more of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I appreciate sharing. Certainly I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and many people have.
Yeah.
It is a fundamental book. The reason he became so successful because he wrote such a simple and a brilliant book. The concept is just is extremely basic, but brilliant. So. Yep,
exactly. Yeah, he lays it out very simply, and I love what he did with it.
Have you played the game, the cash flow of the game?
Yeah, the cash flow. Yeah, I love it. I have it here, and me and my roommates play it all the time.
Yeah, it's certainly great game.
Yeah.
Anyway, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Good luck with your endeavors.
Thank you.
Hope you double your business within 12 months. And appreciate you being a guest. Thank you all for listening. This is The Big Mike. Again, you can find us at thebigmikefund.com. And if you misspell it, bigmikefund.com, you'll still be in the same place. Anyway, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Big Mike Fund Podcast. To receive your copy of Mike's How to Choose a Smart Real Estate Fund book, head to bigmikefund.com or visit Amazon and type Mike Zlotnick. Keep listening and keep investing Big Mike style. See you on the next episode.